Our Division I boys basketball season preview show continues here at JW Hills on Elm Street in Manchester. Jeremy Levier alongside Pete Terrier, my co-host here, and now joining me, filling in for Mike Fitzpatrick is Sudi Lett. Sudi, you're here because you guys had an injury over there in your scrimmage with Pembroke. What happened over there?
We had one of our seniors, Mitch. He possibly has a concussion. He had a deep gash over his eye, required stitches. And we're hoping that he's going to be okay. He walked off under his own power, and he said he was all right. But coach wanted to make sure that he was going to be okay.
All right, so Sudi Lett is the JV coach and assistant coach for Manchester Memorial, also the director of the Bishop Elite AAU program. Obviously, we're going to talk about Memorial here and how the team is looking. A lot of people talking about your team, and some people using that word rebuilding. And after losing a bunch of seniors last year, especially David Medall and Shamari Morgan, and you guys got a bunch of freshmen in here. Talk about this year's team, and do you guys think you're rebuilding? I mean, obviously a lot of youth on this team.
We don't like to use the term rebuilding. We like to say that we're young and we're learning. We will probably have 2 freshmen in our top 8. We do have a lot of talented juniors. We have some talented seniors also, just not many of them. Obviously losing Shamori and David, on any team will hurt a bunch. They're 2 great players, but they did a great job last year of laying a foundation that the juniors have followed, and they've picked it up leadership-wise, and we're looking to surprise some people. I'm sure we'll take our lumps, but we should be there at the end.
And you mentioned the junior class. You guys have a lot of talent. Talk about some of those guys that got some experience last year and are looking to take the reins this year.
I had a couple of players on my team, Majak Winyan and Zubel Iridukunda. They're looking to play varsity, big minutes on varsity this year, as well as Mike Torres, RJ O'Brien, and Mitch. I forget his last name, he's going to kill me. But in Mitch, they're looking to fill a role that David and Shamori left and provide some leadership to the younger guys, our freshmen, and some of the sophomores.
Sudi, looking at Memorial roster over the last couple of years, it's kind of like looking at roll call at a United Nations meeting. You've got kids from all different backgrounds. You said you can't remember names. As a broadcaster, I would hate to do a Memorial play-by-play because I couldn't pronounce half the names of the kids. Is that difficult, kind of getting all these kids, to I guess, get along and communicate and just come together as a team? Because, like I said, you got people from all different walks of life coming in and playing on this team now.
Well, luckily, it's a lot easier because they're kids. If they were adults, it'd be a lot tougher. Being that they're all, teenage kids, they just want to have a good time. They want to play hard and they want to win. A lot of the kids have already experienced each other, whether it's playing on AAU teams, travel teams, CYO teams. So they're familiar with each other. They know each other. They've played in middle school with each other and in high school. So it's not a situation where they're unfamiliar or there's any animosity or adversity that we have, on the team with that at all. The kids are great. They've come together, and it's a great mixture and a great blend.
And Sudi, let's not beat around the bush here. A lot of the guys on your Memorial team play for your AAU program, Bishop Elite. How has that helped? Because a lot of these kids, they play together a lot. They play a lot of basketball, and they play a lot of basketball together, whether it's, for Memorial or for Bishop Elite, or whether it's at an open gym somewhere just playing basketball together. A lot of these kids in this program, play together year-round.
Well, being in our program, a lot of our younger kids, the 8th graders who are now freshmen, they've played up. They played against juniors and seniors during our AAU season. They've been exposed to some of the best competition in the country in our AAU program. So I think that set them up to be able to have success on the varsity level. Like I said, they're familiar with varsity players. They're familiar with David Medall and Shamori, who are no longer there, and they've been able to go toe-to-toe with them. So there's not a situation where there's any intimidation of playing on varsity or, any anxiety or anything like that. They're well prepared, they're ready, and they're ready to make a contribution immediately.
There's a lot of talk about the fact that high school coaches and AAU coaches don't necessarily get along. They have different agendas, a lot of people would say. But I think over the last couple of years, you've seen more of these AAU coaches and high school coaches kind of getting together, sort of like your situation with Manchester Memorial and Coach Fitzpatrick. Why do you think that is the case now, where they're starting to work together instead of being adversarial?
Well, in our case, we put the student athlete above everything else. We believe that if you put the student athlete first, we should have no problems working together, whether it's CYO coaches, trainers, whoever it may be. I think this year, and especially with Coach Fitzpatrick, they put a high emphasis on skill training and a high emphasis on doing your best to get better. I think that a lot of AAU coaches around the country use that same emphasis. And I just think a lot of the high school coaches are starting to, use AAU as a tool instead of looking at it as a one versus the other. It's a situation where playing AAU for a student athlete can be very beneficial to them. And, if there is a great rapport between AAU programs and high schools, it just benefits the student athlete that much more.
And, you mentioned your 8th graders that are now freshmen in your Bishop Elite program. A few of those guys, they played against some good competition in AAU, and now some of those guys are playing for your program with Memorial as well. Who are those? Some of those freshmen, that you're hoping are going to be? How many freshmen do you guys have on the varsity this year? And how much of them do you expect to contribute this year to the varsity?
We only have 2 freshmen that are going to be on varsity: Kabango Galakalundi and Amaro Kante. We expect them to be in our top 8. We expect them to be able to make an immediate impact. I'm not sure, I'm not Coach Fitzpatrick, so I can't tell you exactly about minutes, but I can tell you that, when I watch them practice, they're competing, they're playing hard, they're positive, and they both have great work ethics. I mean, they're gym rats, they want to do better, they want to play better, and they're ready to learn. So those are the only 2 that are going to be playing significant varsity minutes. The other freshmen that are in the program, Wade Gopp, Wenyan Gabriel, Trayvon Mon, they're going to play either freshman or JV.
And talking about Kabongo and Amaru, what is it about them as a player that obviously you've been coaching them for a while now? How long have you been coaching those guys, and what are they going to bring to the table these next couple of years? Because I got a feeling those are a couple names that fans watching this right now might not have heard much about until now, but they're over the next 4 years, those are definitely 2 names they're going to hear a lot about following New Hampshire basketball.
Well, in order to come in as a freshman and play varsity, you need to physically be ready. Both players are physically ready, strength-wise, to be able to play varsity. Amaro brings a high IQ to the game, and Kabongo just brings a physical presence that you don't normally see in a freshman. Both of those guys are able to play inside and outside. Amaro does play point guard, but he's great at attacking any type of defense and finding open guys and making plays. Kabongo is coming along great. He's got a great outside shot, and like I said, he's very physical, more so than your usual freshman. So, I think they're going to have, spectacular basketball careers as long as they keep their academics together. I don't think anything should be a problem.
And Pete's got a question, but first, how do you say Kabongo's last name? Because that's something I've written it, in articles and everything, but I haven't had to pronounce it yet.
But the N is silent. Right?
Okay.
The N is silent. It's Galakalundi. So the N is silent, and it
doesn't sound so bad.
It's Galakalundi. Galakalundi.
Okay.
I don't know what to say after something like that. But I really wanted to ask you about the Queen City Invitational basketball tournaments coming up in a couple of weeks. Awesome take. If you're a high school basketball fan, you're seeing 8 teams, all New Hampshire teams, all 4 Manchester teams going at it. That is at Memorial, but it's not really put on by Memorial. Who puts that on, and how does that come about? It seems like you get the same 8 teams back every single year. They just want to come back and play.
Well, as far as the organization, I tell my kids, if they don't know, say you don't know. So I don't know. I'm not going to BS you. But I will say this: the tournament's been great. As a former player at Manchester Central, I've played in the tournament. It's been great competition. It's great to be able to get a chance to go up against some of the guys you're going to see in the year. And as far as being one of the city teams, you want to bring home the championship for the city. So it's just a great tournament. It's been that way for years, and we look forward to competing and hopefully winning it.
Stuart, you talk about Mike Fitzpatrick and your relationship with him, and obviously anybody around New Hampshire basketball knows Mike Fitzpatrick and the track record that he has as a coach. Been with him a couple of years now as an assistant and JV coach. What kind of things have you learned from him, from coaching with him?
Well, one of the biggest things that I learned from him is a willingness to learn. You know, with a coach that's as accomplished as he is, you would think that, you know, you get into a situation where you feel like you know it all. He never has that attitude. He's always looking to learn something new and to challenge, you know, certain truths in basketball where you do this all the time. He looks to challenge that and expound upon those things. So the biggest thing that I've taken from him is just a willingness to learn new things and not get set in your ways. You know, basketball is always a changing sport. You know, it changed from the 50s to the 60s, from 60s to the 80s, the 80s to the 90s, and 90s till today. So it's always evolving, it's always changing. And as a coach, he's been able to adapt with that, which is great.
How much do you think, in what ways has the game changed since you were playing back in high school?
Well, the guys, of course, they're bigger and faster. I mean, automatically. And the biggest thing that I've seen is that they've taken the game from an American game and they've made it more international. One of the biggest moves that a lot of players do is the Euro step now. So, you know, when I was in high school, it was a travel. But now
that step through.
Right.
Yeah.
Now the game's being called different. They're being allowed to do different things. It's more up and down. And, I mean, it's great. As a basketball fan, I love it.
They teach that. Right. I've coached and I teach that move, too. I mean, you see it everywhere now.
Right. I mean, and we do as well. It's important, like I said, it's important to be able to take from everybody, not to just say that, you know, one person knows, you know, one thing. You know, you look for anything you can get, any advantage anywhere, and you learn.
Wasn't too long ago that we were wondering whether or not there would be an NBA season. I assume you're glad to have that back, but do you think it's important for the NBA to have worked out their labor situation for the kids' sake? Because when the kids, they look forward to that, they obviously enjoy their season and the competition, but they enjoy the college game, but they really enjoy that pro game. Is that something that you're happy because the kids have it back to watch and you can kind of teach from that as well?
I mean, I'm going to be a little selfish. I'm happy to have it back so I can watch. I think that there's a lot of good things to learn on the pro and college level. I think that it's important that the kids watch a little bit more college basketball because that's the step in between pro. I know for me as a young player, I watched a ton of NBA. And, you know, when I got into a situation with coaches who coached a lot of college basketball, there were some things I didn't learn or I didn't know. A college basketball system is tailored more towards the team, and the NBA is tailored more towards the individual. A lot of isolation plays as opposed to a lot of flex and a lot of 5-out. So, I mean, there's, like I said, there's different things you can pick up on both levels. I encourage our kids to watch both, watch everything, and learn from everybody.
And, Sudi, as you know, coaching with the Bishop Elite, you know, you get to, you know, coach, you know, some of your kids play for Memorial, but a lot of them play for other schools, you know, with you got 16U, 17U teams, and how has that helped you, you know, with scouting for Memorial? You know, I mean, your 17U team is basically an all-star team of, you know, Division I basketball. You got Tyler Gendron on there, Anthony Muccioli, you know, Trevor Fahmy, Division II though, but you know, a lot of the kids, you know, that played on your team, you know, that's got to help you with scouting, you know, with your rollout with Bishop Elite as well.
It helps you with scouting, but I mean, I imagine that, you know, the Cleveland Cavaliers watched a lot of Michael Jordan. There's nothing you can do with a great player, you know. So with those kids are they're becoming great. You know, they're working towards great. It does help out because I know a little bit of their weaknesses, but overall the kids are strong. The 17U team that you mentioned was able to go to New York City and hold their own against teams from Texas, teams from New York, teams from New Jersey. So, I mean, there's only so much I can do. The players are going to have to get out there and play against the Gabe LeCounts, the Anthony Mucciolis, the Tyler Gendrons, and they're going to have to hold their own. You know, a scouting report can only do so much.
Who are some of the kids that you, you know, that you coach, whether, you know, any of your teams, you know, the 14U, 16U, or 17U teams this year, that you expect, whether they play for Memorial or not, that you expect looking at this season to have kind of breakout years for their respective high schools?
Well, as far as our freshmen go, I know that Zach Jones in Concord, I expect him to get big minutes and to make a good contribution. Jordan Bell at Bishop Brady, that's not a Division I, but I expect him to have a big contribution and to make a big impact. There's Gabe LeCount, there's Tyler Gendron that you guys mentioned earlier. We have Majak Winyan, Mabor Gabriel, Tonga Cott, Troy Pelletier, Brandon Malik. I mean, you know, we do a great job of not just trying to go after prep school kids, but trying to get the kids in the NHIAA and, you know, show the rest of the country and show the state that these kids are good, you know, and we can compete with anybody and everybody. So.
What would you tell a parent? A lot of parents will be watching this, and they're obviously very supportive of their kids as they play in their high school. What would you tell them as far as choosing an AAU program and the balance between high school and AAU?
The biggest thing that I would tell them is to have their academics in order. I think one of the worst things to do is to go all across the country, play great basketball, have coaches salivating over you, asking for you, and then you don't have the grades to make it. So the biggest thing that I would tell them is to make sure their grades are together first. Second, you have to decide how far you want to go with basketball. There's some guys that just want to make a college team. They're not looking to continue to play basketball after college. Once you get your goals in order, then it's easier to make a commitment, whether it be a really elite AAU program like ours or, a travel team. More or less, where they can get more playing time and get more reps in the game and be the quote-unquote star player. I advise any player that wants to get better to challenge themselves, whether that's playing on the elite AAU team or playing against other elite players. Some of our younger players, they play in men's league where they're playing against guys that are in their 20s as their teenagers. So there's many different ways to get better other than AAU. And, we encourage all parents to look at everything before making a decision.
And Sudi, before we let you go, obviously year-round, between AAU circuit and summer league basketball and during the high school season, you see a lot of basketball in this state, especially in the Manchester area. We've talked to some other people about who some of the other favorites are. Looking at Division I, you said your team maybe in a little bit of a rebuilding mode, but you're going to surprise some people. Who are some of the teams you expect to contend for the title come March?
Well, personally, I would definitely put the top two at Trinity and Merrimack, especially with Dimitri coming back to Merrimack. They were already in contention without him. He's a dynamic player. Luckily, we had David Madal last year, or we probably would have took an L to them. But, those two guys, Trinity with their length, their size, the fact that they have three guys that are above 6'6", that are skilled. They have guards that complement them very well. Merrimack's the same way. You're talking about a team that's played together since they were sophomores. They have probably the best player in Class L on their team also. And the Gendron brothers are no slouches in their own respect. So I look at those two to absolutely be the leaders in our division. But, if I learned anything playing and watching this, is anything can happen. And no lead is safe. No team's unbeatable.
All right, that's Sudi Ouellette, the JV coach and assistant coach for Manchester Memorial, and also the director for Bishop Elite AAU program. We thank him for joining us on our Division I boys basketball season preview show. Thanks, Sudi, and best of luck to your team this season.